Hi everyone. This is Nuclear Pep Talk and I'm Ksenia, your guide into a nuclear world. This is a project where I ask 10 questions to break all the myths and fears about everything nuclear, hopefully in simple words and with amazing experts. The first episode of my video cast I would like to dedicate to a wonderful woman, Cynthia Lazaroff. She's a founder and director of the Women Transforming Our Nuclear Legacy and Nuclear Wake-Up.Call.Earth. She's also an award-winning filmmaker and producer, and she's also an environmental activist. In 2018, for 38 minutes and 15 seconds, she thought that her life and her home would be destroyed by a ballistic missile. Because that year, Hawaiian people received a notification, an alert that the ballistic missile is coming. She will share with us her experience and how she lived through those 38 minutes thinking about the ballistic missile carrying nuclear weapons coming to her home. Please welcome. Hi everyone, welcome to the Nuclear Pep Talk, and today we have wonderful Cynthia Lazaroff who is going to talk us through her experience of the Hawaii false ballistic missile alert. My first question to you will be, how did you know that the missile was coming? Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So it was the morning of January 13th, 2018, and I was sitting in the living room of our little house. And our nephew, Tom, who was visiting, burst into the living room breathless from outside. He came in and he held up his cell phone and he showed it to us. And it had the emergency alert on it that said, ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii, seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. And so that's the way we found out. Our cell phones were on silent. So we didn't know that it had happened until he ran into the room. So that was the way I found out.
What was your first thought when he ran into the room and told you that?
Well, the first thought was, can this be real? And, maybe your phone has been hacked. And so I went and I checked my cell phone, and there it was on the screen, the emergency alert from the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency in capital letters, ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii, seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. But still it was, well, maybe I've been hacked too, and so we started to call 911 to ask if it was real, but we couldn't get through because everybody was calling 911, asked to try to get the same answer, and nobody could get through because all the lines were jammed. So that was, and then at the same time, the other feeling was, where are our loved ones? We have to make sure they're okay. We have to get to them. And so my partner said, I don't know if this is real or not, but I'm going to go get the girls, because our younger daughters were 7 miles away in the town of Kapa'a. And so he rushed to go out the door. And I said, wait a second, we need a plan. If it is real, I don't want to be separated. And he said, call me in the car and we'll figure it out. So with that, he was out the door, and I stood there really dazed and thinking, who do I know that's going to know if this is real or not? And I immediately thought of my dear friend, Felicia Cowden, who's a journalist, who's the first to know anything, and everybody takes her phone call. And I tried to phone her. I left a message. I texted her. I checked her Facebook page, and there was nothing. And after what seemed like an eternity, she called me back and she said, Cynthia, the county's telling us to take shelter, and the county's our government. And so I thought, my God, this is real. I have to take it seriously.
And when you realized that it's real, what was the next thing that you did?
Well, the next thing was, where do we go? And there are no designated nuclear shelters in the state of Hawaii. So we tried to think of the most sealed environment that would be the closest to us that we could get to in a short time. And that was a meditation cave on a neighbor's property. And we decided to meet and shelter there. And then the next thing was, well, what do you take with you? I mean, what do I take? What do I pack? And so I looked at my phone and it had 12% charge. And I thought, my God, and what am I going to do? And then I thought, well, I think that there's electricity in the cave because I've seen lights there. So I grabbed a bag and I started throwing things in it. I threw my phone charger, my computer charger, my purse, my passport. And then I actually grabbed this shawl, and because I wanted to wrap it around my face and to protect myself from radiation if we had fallout. And then I grabbed leggings for the
Hmm.
same reason. And then I thought food and water. And then I thought, oh, I've done nothing to prepare my family for this because we had been, this was at the time of the fire and fury between Donald Trump and Kim Jong Un. And we knew that we'd been marked as a target in Hawaii on North Korea's map of nuclear
Hmm.
death. And so we'd been getting instructions about how to prepare for a nuclear attack from our government and how to survive a nuclear attack. And we were supposed to have 1 gallon of water per day for 14 days per person, and that same amount of canned food, 14 days of canned food for all members of your family. And I'd done none of that. And so I looked on the shelf and there were 2 small bottles of water. I threw those into the bag and then a bunch of bananas. And then I ran out the door and jumped in my car. And I decided to drive, even though it's a short walk of only about 7 minutes or so to the cave, because I didn't know
Hmm.
how many minutes we had. I didn't know when the missile was coming. I just didn't know if it was going to come in a second or in 5 minutes from now.
You said that your government was preparing you for the potential missile attack, from the North Korean side.
Right.
But what were they actually doing, to prepare you to raise awareness about that? And did it actually help at the moment?
Well, well, what they did was, and this was something that had started. I think I'd heard about it the summer before, the summer of 2017. We were getting these instructions. They were putting out instructions, like I just mentioned, about how to prepare for a nuclear attack and how to survive a nuclear attack. And for me, I didn't really pay attention to them. I don't know that many other people did either, because I felt that it would be the thought of trying to survive a nuclear attack seemed really, um, well, I just didn't want to let myself really think about that. I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to believe that it was possible. And I also felt like if it was a really big nuclear attack, like a huge nuclear attack, if we were hit by a missile, that it would be the thought of surviving something that might escalate into a nuclear war, would be something that would be really hard to do. So I just I personally didn't prepare. But in that
Hmm.
moment of when when I got that message and I thought it might be one nuclear missile from North Korea, I thought it might be other things too, which I'll talk about later. But when I thought that it might be one nuclear missile, my instinct was, if I can survive with my family, I want to try to survive. So what do I need to take with me right now in these few minutes that I have that might make it possible to survive? And then I realized I wish I had, stocked the water and the canned food. But I honestly, even if I had, I could have never fit that all in the bag and run it up the hill to the cave that I was going to be going to. So it all still seems, I don't know how I would be able to carry all of that, and you know what I mean? It just isn't realistic. And in Hawaii,
Yeah.
we live outside in the sense that we have indoor outdoor living. Our in my house, I have a screened in porch, and the walls are all screened, so there's no way to close the windows. There's no window to close in that room, and you can't really keep the windows closed when it's so hot. You need air to breathe. So I always have my windows open year round because you need the air in the hot tropical weather. So it just, it all seemed surreal, um, unimaginable. So that was kind of my experience. I don't think that most people prepared. I think that people probably ignored the warnings like I did at the time.
Do you feel like you're prepared now?
Well, the other thing is, Ksenia, is in Hawaii, you're supposed to have all of these kind of emergency supplies in case of a hurricane or in
Uh-huh.
case of a tsunami. And I'm in a tsunami zone. I live
Mm-hmm.
close to the ocean. And so I thought about that too. It was strange because when I lived in California for many years, I always had an earthquake kit in my garage, one in my garage, one in my car. And I thought, I really need to do this. So I actually have now on hand food supplies and water supplies, emergency supplies for anything. But again, in the case of a nuclear attack, I would go again to this meditation cave because it's the nearest location, and it's the most sealed environment that I can think of. There are no windows. It's literally in the side of a hill. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know how I would carry all of those things into that cave. I don't know how I would get them up this big hillside. So I would have more to take than I did, but it would be really hard to transport everything unless I was running back up and down the hill. And then if there's a missile coming, what do you do if it hits while you're running up and down
Mm-hmm.
the hill? You just want to get to shelter. That seems like the most important thing. And I know that the state of Hawaii hasn't created, emergency shelters that I know of for anything like this. So I think we're still in the same situation that we were in 2018 when this happened, except that we've been through something like this now and we've given thought to where we would go, how what we would take with us, that kind of thing.
Did you did you think of leaving Hawaii afterwards when you understood that there is no actual infrastructure that may protect you in case of, something like that happens? Did you think of leaving your home because of that?
Not really, no, because a nuclear strike or a nuclear war can strike anywhere, just about where I would choose to live. I would have moved if I were to go. I'd come back to the mainland of the United States, where I'm visiting right now in California, and I know that there's nowhere that's really safe in the United States, at least from where I would choose to be, a major city like Los Angeles, where I lived for 30 so years or so before I moved to Hawaii. There isn't really a place to escape in terms of the places that I would be looking to live or move to. So no, I didn't. But I was more aware that on the island of Hawaii, there is what's known as PMRF, the Pacific Missile Research Facility, which is the largest missile defense testing site in the world. And I am much more aware now that we are obviously for that reason a target. Even the small, tiny island that I live on that only has a population of approximately 73,000 people, lots of tourists every year, up to a million, but a very small island, that we still are a target for an attack.
How did you inform your family members, your daughters? You said that you went to pick up your younger daughters, and I know that you also had a child at that moment who was far away. How did you inform your loved ones?
Well, my partner went for the younger daughters in Kapa'a, and I was organizing everything. And my eldest daughter had just left for Los Angeles a couple of days before. She had been with us, but she was in LA at the time. And so when I was in the car on the way to the cave, it was only at that moment that I allowed myself to think of her. Um, and honestly, Ksenia, if I had thought of her a second sooner, I probably wouldn't have been emotionally able to organize myself the way I did, as best I could, in the limited way I did, to leave. But so I thought, my God, I've got to call Mackenzie. I've got to tell her about this, and I've got to say goodbye. So I tried to phone her as soon as I got in the car, and I have really bad cell service in my neighborhood, and so it was ringing and then not ringing and then ringing and ringing, and she wasn't picking up. And I parked the car and I ran to the steps to the cave. And just as I got to the foot of the steps to the cave, she picked up, and I said, Mackenzie, I don't know if you've heard, but we've all got this message on our cell phones that we're about to be hit by a nuclear missile. And I just want you to know I love you, and I'll call you from the cave if I can, but I just want you to know that I love you. And she said, Mom, she said, I love you too. And at that moment, time stopped for me. I didn't want to let her go. I thought, am I ever going to hear her voice again? And everything kind of just went frozen for me. And I began to think, what if this isn't one nuclear missile from North Korea, but what if it's many nuclear missiles from Russia coming to us and many from us going back to Russia? What if this is the beginning of one of those accidental nuclear wars that former Soviet leader Gorbachev and former Secretary of Defense William Perry and so many other experts that I'd just interviewed for a film on U.S.-Russia relations and nuclear dangers had told me that they were so concerned about. And I thought, what if this is the beginning of the end of life as we know it, of everything and everyone we know and love and cherish on this earth? And at that moment, I heard, Mom, Mom, go, go. So Mackenzie kind of jolted me out of this moment that was frozen in time. And I said, I love you. And I ran up the hill to the cave. And just as I got to the door to the cave, it opened. And it was my neighbor, Colleen, and she came out and she was smiling. And she said it was a false alarm, and she held up her phone. So it took 38 minutes for our Hawaii Emergency Management Agency to get the message out to us that it was a false alarm.
Impressive in a very negative way, I must say. How did you feel when you figured out that it was a false alarm? What was your feeling? What were your thoughts?
Well, my first impulse, my first feeling was this feeling of gratitude. It was kind of pinching my cheeks and saying, I'm still here. We're all still here. We have another chance to do something about this. So it was really
Hmm.
gratitude. And then it was this feeling of a much greater appreciation for the gift of life. All of my senses were enhanced. I stood there walking down the steps. I stopped on the steps as I was walking down the hillside, and I just stood there and felt the wind on my cheeks, and it felt like it was kissing my cheeks. I'd never felt that way before. The sound from the ocean that was nearby was just kind of, it was so, the sound was so sweet in my ears. And then I looked up at the palm trees um, swaying in the wind, and it looked like they were dancing. And then I got home and I saw this crownflower bush outside our house that has butterflies all over it. It's a pollinating bush, and the greens and the purples and the butterflies just so alive. I felt like a child. I felt like I'd been reborn, like I'd been given life again. It was amazing. And then I came to this message of, this is a gift. You need to share this. You need to start writing this down right now. And so I started writing in a journal, and that became an article that was published in the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists on Hiroshima Day later that year, called Dawn of a New Armageddon, about that experience, which is really about the moment to moment experience I've just shared with you, but interwoven with what I learned from former Soviet leader Gorbachev and former US Secretary of Defense William Perry and many other experts about the nuclear dangers, all of which, because I'd just done those interviews, were present with me during those 38 minutes. I had just been awakened by all these people. And so that article kind of becomes a combination of really a story of what the dangers are today, what the risks are, and what it feels like to go through an experience where you're personally aware of those risks and you think you're going to be hit by a nuclear missile.
I will for sure attach the link to your article to the video so people can actually read through your
Thank you.
experience as well if
Thank
they,
you, Ksenia.
yeah, if they want to learn more and to understand, your comparisons and, your ideas in regard with this false alarm and then also this awakening that you've experienced and with those interviews that you've taken before. And how, in a long term, did it affect your life? Do you still feel that, you're not the same? Like, how has it changed your life?
Well, it's really changed it profoundly. This experience made the nuclear threat personal for me, palpable, and real in a way that I had never known before. Even with everything that I knew about nuclear weapons, nuclear war was unimaginable to me before I went through those 38 minutes. And now this experience really lives inside of me. It was a visceral experience, and it's inside of me as a mother, as a human being, and it's never going to go away until we eliminate nuclear weapons. And so that's why I'm here with you today talking about this, and why I'm really dedicating myself to the abolition of nuclear weapons. I've started a number of projects since this experience. One of them was called NuclearWakeUpCall.Earth, which I launched the day on Hiroshima Day, the day that my article came out. And then also a project that's connected to that called Women Transforming Our Nuclear Legacy, which is really catalyzing a global movement of women and girls to abolish nuclear weapons. I just want to say that it was, for me and for hundreds of thousands of others across the Hawaiian Islands, it was a deeply personal near-death experience, and those experiences change you forever. They changed me forever. It was really an awakening to what's at stake, that our lives are at stake, and an awakening to what's most precious and most important, which is our love for, my love for my daughter, our love for our beloved loved ones, our love for all we hold precious and dear on this earth, our love for our families, all the children, the people we love the most. So, and we now know that, at the same time that I was calling my daughter to say goodbye, we were all calling our loved ones to say goodbye here in Hawaii. And I love you. Um, and so, so my prayer is that it's an awakening, to act out of love, love for life, love for all we hold dear, love for our loved ones, not out of fear. That we
Hmm.
can change our nuclear story and work together to eliminate nuclear weapons.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And what would you advise to people who might experience the same thing, in in our reality, if it's possible to advise anything?
Well, I would hope that no one would ever have to go through what we went through. Um,
Hmm.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but I would invite them to do everything they can to work together with all of us who are working on this to make sure this never happens again, or even worse, that a nuclear exchange happens, or even worse, a nuclear war happens, and to work for the um, total elimination of nuclear weapons. That's the way to make sure this never happens again.
And that leads me to my last question to you. What would you say if you stand in front of the nuclear weapon state president?
Well, I would want to share, I think, that moment with my daughter of because I think everyone can relate to what it feels like to imagine the moment where you'd be saying goodbye to your loved one for what you think is the very last time. And then I would say that this is not just a personal wake up call, but it's a planetary wake up call, that I would say our lives are at stake, that
Mhm.
your life, my life, all of our lives are at stake. And the only way to prevent one person or nine nuclear armed countries from holding the world hostage and unleashing nuclear Armageddon is to abolish, eliminate, and ban nuclear weapons forever. And then we're all still here. We still have a chance to get this right and move as quickly as possible toward the total elimination of nuclear weapons. And I would say that I would urge them that it's a moral and existential imperative that we fulfill the pledge of Article 6 in the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and that we support the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, and we ratify it, and we ban nuclear weapons for our children, for our future. And I would say it as a prayer, that may it be so.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to us today. Thank you, Cynthia, for sharing your experience. I'm sure everyone felt it through, and I hope everyone now understands why we need to eliminate nuclear weapons. And for those who have been watching, remember that fear is here. Learn about nuclear. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you liked that episode. And if you like this video, please press the like button, subscribe if you want to see more because another video is coming. And I will really appreciate it because I'm obviously a newbie in here, so I will really appreciate your support. And for those who have done everything, I have a nuclear treat for you. This is something I'm going to do at the end of every video, so watch till the end. And this is a nuclear acronym of the day. Because in our nuclear field, we have so many acronyms, and when the person when the person just sees them for the first time, it appears to be super difficult. So the first acronym that we're going to talk about today is the NPT. And no, it's not a nuclear pep talk, it's non-proliferation treaty. NPT has three main pillars: disarmament, non-proliferation, and peaceful uses of nuclear energy. That's what it basically does. It helps to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. It also helps out states that are non-nuclear weapon states to develop their peaceful nuclear technology, nuclear energy. And the third pillar, disarmament, is basically stated in the Article 6, which states that states. And the third pillar of the NPT is disarmament, which is stated in Article 6, the legendary article that everyone complains about, because it states that countries have to pursue negotiations and achieve disarmament, kind of, together. But it doesn't happen, so that's the problem, basically. So hopefully it will happen someday, and the NPT will survive. I'll see you soon. I'll see you in the next Nuclear Pep Talk. It was good to see you. Bye!